Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin and some of the altcoins that we've covered over the last couple of months. We'll also be looking at the Pi cycle and exactly where we are in relation to the price of Bitcoin. We'll also be looking at the log growth curve and why this level here, which has now gone to 67,500 up to today, why that's very critical for the price of Bitcoin. We'll also be looking at the altcoins such as Neo and how our first target over here has now been met. We're on to the second target and beyond. And in today's Wisdom Bites, we'll be looking at a few of the quotations that can really shape your life for the better. And if that sounds interesting, then without further ado, get yourselves a cup of tea, get your Snickers bar, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, and let's get cracking. But as usual, a polite reminder that everything in this video is for educational purposes only and nothing should be taken as financial advice. Please do your due diligence and do your wider research before making any investment decisions. Just remember that everything in this video is my perspective. It's my take on the charts. And it could be totally wrong. And I wouldn't want anyone to lose their money because of my perspective. So please be sensible and do your wider research. Okay, so we'll start off on the daily chart, and we've drawn this neckline here in the last few videos, and we said that once we close above this neckline here, we should go off to the races. Well, in the last few hours, we've had this big pump here. It's gone above the neckline. Let's see if it closes above that. We still haven't reached this all-time high level yet, so if we wanted to, that would be the next level to see whether we can break that over here. So that's the neckline that we really need to break before we start going up further. But there are a number of factors here, as I've mentioned in the last many videos, that we have to navigate before we can really go off to the races. And there's going to be some corrections along the way, whether we like it or not. The first one we've got to look at is the log growth curve. And this yellow line, as we've mentioned, because of historical chart patterns, is going to prove a very strong resistance for the Bitcoin price. As we've now come to this pump here, we may be going towards that price. And in the last few videos that we did, this price was at around 66,000, but now it's obviously moved up to the 67,000 mark. And next week, this should go up to 68,000. So this price movement that we've had with Bitcoin is going to gravitate towards this level here. Now, it can easily wick up towards 70,000 before retreating back below this line here. So this line will prove to be a resistance. So certainly the 68,000 mark should be an important level and very relevant to the Bitcoin price in the next few days, possibly next couple of weeks. And if we zoom out on this log growth curve, this yellow line is going to prove quite a resistance because historically, as we've seen here, we got up to it and had a big, massive 75% correction there. And also when we came up to this level here, there was a rejection there, etc. So we have this yellow line to navigate. It's not impossible that we go straight through it, but certainly the historical chart patterns would suggest that it's going to play a relevant and very important part in the next few weeks when the price comes to hit it around the 68,000 mark in the next week or so. Another resistance to look at is the R1 line here, which is currently at $65,000, as I mentioned at the beginning of the month. In every single month since September, we have hit the R1 line, as you can see. There, here, here. So the high probability is that we're going to hit this line at 65,000 very, very shortly. Whether we stop at this line, we do tend to have resistances, as you can see from all the points before. We do get a certain amount to play around that level. Whether the price goes right through the R2 and goes up to the 72,000 level is anybody's guess. But I certainly am not expecting it to go to 72,000. But if it did, it would probably wick up to there and then come back down towards the $68,000 level. And we could possibly have a deeper correction after that. The other resistance point is obviously at 64,000, as we mentioned with the Fibonacci retracement here, that at the 61.8 level, times by 3, then next level would be 64,000 here. And that would take it to this purple line there. So that's a possible resistance line there. The thing to remember with the Fibonacci retracements is that they don't always exactly come to the point of the 61.8. Many times they'll go through it, but hang around that level, or have you, and prove a resistance around it. So sometimes they're exact like this, but sometimes they have wicks going up and down along them. So it may not be that it comes back from 64. It may go up to the 67, 68 level and come back and rest on there before we have a deeper correction, or before we use that as a springboard to go much further higher. However, there is one other level that nobody seems to be looking at this moment, which is much further up, higher than the current levels that people are talking about. And that is this long-term trend line that we've drawn in the past. You may have remembered it. There we go here. This is the longest trend line in the history of Bitcoin, and it stretches back all the way back to the 2011 mark here. And as you can see, huge amounts of support all the way along here, support and resistance, and now we're going to be coming up against this. Anybody who's in the cryptocurrencies or even stocks and shares will tell you that when you have a strong trend line like this, it will play a major role, not a minor role, a major role in the price when it comes up to it. And I would be absolutely amazed if it doesn't get a big resistance here along this line. So the question is, what level is this line currently? If we have a closer look, this line currently is at around about the $107,000, $108,000 mark. Obviously, as the price moves up, the price at the trend line will move up. So anywhere between 110 to 120,000 is what you're looking at. I know that's quite a way into the future, but we must keep the longer term perspective with Bitcoin. Otherwise, when we lose the longer term perspective, we make terrible short-term decisions. So that's why we always zoom out here at Wisdom Bites to have a look at the longer term perspective. Yes, there's a lot of things at play around here at the moment, but there are other things lurking in the very near future, and we need to really be aware of it. So please keep in mind this long-term trend line. Nobody is looking at this, but we must look at this because we know it's going to play a major role in the price of Bitcoin. So what's happened to the pi cross, I hear you say? Well, let's have a look at that. This is where we're at currently. And with this pump here, and if we go further very, very quickly in the next few days, we'll see the cross occurring very shortly. And if we zoomed in, you can see quite clearly that we're getting closer, but we're not quite there yet. So it may take another few days, depending on the price, of course, of Bitcoin. If we move rapidly towards the $66,000, $67,000, $68,000 mark, then this will cross very, very quickly. But it's certainly, if you look at the distance between the lines, it's getting very, very close now. Please remember, with the pi cycle cross that we're expecting, in itself, it's not inherently the cause of the fall in the price or the correction or whatever the difference occurs in the price of Bitcoin. I think there's a little bit of a confusion with the pi cycle, which I want to just alleviate for you. I noticed in the comment sections that a few people think that the cross in itself will cause the crash. And this is not what I'm saying at all. We're just looking at pi cycle as one of many, many indicators that need to be confirmed before anything like that can happen. So when the cross comes, and if we're moving up to the log growth curve, 76.39 Fibonacci level at the $67,000, $68,000 mark in the next few days, then that would be a confirming factor for this, because that would be a strong resistance line, and that cross would then confirm that. And at that point, many traders, many investors out there may use that to sell, and that then causes a fall in the price. So these things have to be taken in its own individual merits, and no one indicator has the power to change the price of Bitcoin or the chart patterns. So no indicator tells the whole story. They are part of the whole story. If we have a look at the RSI first of all, as you can see quite clearly, that we've got room to grow to get back up towards these levels here. So certainly the price can easily move. Could that be towards the $66,000, $67,000, $68,000 mark? Only time will tell. However, you may notice, and I brought this to your attention in the last few videos, that we have got bearish divergence here, and it hasn't seemed to have played out yet. So it may well be we have a quick run up to whatever level is resistance, and then have a correction, and then this then resets itself on the RSI chart. That's on the weekly time frame, but if you look on the daily time frame, it's exactly the same. You can see the divergence is still there. We haven't played that out yet. So we must be very, very careful. Not everything in the chart looks rosy, but certainly there is room to grow, and we could easily get up to certain price levels. And I've seen quite a few other YouTube videos where they're claiming that the price is going to go to 80 and 90 and 100,000. I'm not sure whether they know about those resistant points along the way. And they may well be right. Here at Wisdom Bites, we want to keep a level head and realize that there are many resistant points along the way before we go and hit the 100,000 plus mark. If we had a look at the stochastic RSI on the weekly time frame, again, we're right at the bottom of this, which tells us that once we have the cross to the upside, we may be ready to go further up. And as you can see with the other previous crosses, they do have significant momentum to the upside once they get going. So keep an eye on that as well. Finally, I'd like to have a look at the moving averages. On the weekly chart, as you can see, whenever we have a bull market, we have the moving averages all lined up from the 20, 50, 100 and 200 moving average levels in the descending order of the 20, 50, 100 and the 200 weekly moving averages. Also on the daily moving averages, it's exactly the same. You can see quite clearly the yellow is the 20, the white is the 50, the red is the 100, and the green is the 200 daily moving averages. So they've been all in a straight line. That's telling you it's still all very bullish and we're all moving in the same direction, which is up. And there doesn't seem to be the end of the bull market anytime soon. If you want to support the channel, then please click on any of my videos, and then below the videos you'll find a box called Show More, which gives you a description box. And in that description box is the affiliate link with Etoro that I have. So I partner up with Etoro because that's the main exchange I use for all my investments. These are the reasons why I tend to use Etoro. It's a very simple exchange to use in terms of depositing money and withdrawing the money, as well as trading if that's what you want to do, as well as for long-term investing, which is what I tend to do. So if you want to support the channel, please click on the partnership link, and then what you'll do is you'll get this box here, and then you can basically put your username, email and password and just fill in the form there. If you like any of my videos and you find value in them, then please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If we move on to Ethereum, we can see quite clearly that in the last video when I mentioned this, I said that we're coming up to this neckline here, and once we break that, that'll be the all-time high breakage at the neckline here, and that's similar to the last pattern that it was following, which is that it was coming up to this neckline here, and once it breaks, it goes very much parabolic. So now I'm expecting the price of Ethereum to very quickly run up towards the 3,000 mark. And if we have a look at the stochastic RSI on the weekly chart, we can see quite clearly that we're getting a cross coming up very, very shortly on the stochastic RSI, and this will give us the momentum to propel it much, much higher over here. And as we've seen before, at these levels, we get very good momentum in a bull market. There. A quick look at some of the altcoins. NEO was one of the first ones that I actually gave you a tip, and that was around about the 23, 24 mark when we came to this neckline here, and I mentioned this cup and handle pattern that we're about to break and we'll be off to the races. That's exactly what's happened here, and we set a target at that time of $62 here, which we've just now met. We've peaked above it, so we're well onto nearly 3 times the price of Bitcoin when I tipped it over here. So we're already around about the 3x mark, just over 2.5, 3x mark. The next target is going to be 209, 210 level here. So look out for that. But we've got a long, long way to go yet. Moving on to Zcash. Again, we had this cup and handle. And we came up to this neckline. And I mentioned here that this would be a great opportunity to buy here. That was around the $130 mark. We're up to $201 here. Our next target is 411. And that's based on what's happening left here. If you look at the resistance and support lines here, it takes us to this level at around about the 411 mark. We're moving quickly on to the next target, which was the high at this point here, around about the 1st of January 2018, when the market collapsed. But the all-time high was up here. So that's the next target here, around about the $2,500 level. Moving on to Cardano, again, if you look at the stochastic RSIs in all of them, you'll find that they're quite low down here. That means that there's going to be a lot of momentum moving back up to the upside. So currently we've come up to this level here, around about the 1.22 mark. And this was the neckline that it needed to be breaking up from. So we've come a long, long way, and we've got a long way to go towards our target here of around about the $21 mark. We've got quite a lot of requests for XRP, so I'll do a quick analysis on that. And basically, if you look at the chart here, as you know, we had some bad news around this level here that the SEC was going to be taking XRP to the courts. And the news actually caused the spike down in the price. Despite that, the charts were still showing a very bullish pattern. And this bullish pattern really needed to hold these lines here. And I said at the time that we must hold these prices around the 22 cents mark. If we can hold that, and that was simply based on this trend line here. If we had closed below the 22 cents line, then I would have turned very bearish on XRP. However, we held on strongly at these levels and started to move much higher. And that gave me a lot of confidence that we're going to be now going very much higher for the XRP price. We've now just in the last few hours broken out of this neckline here. And as you can see, that was the neckline with the resistance here and here. So once you break these resistance points, we go off to the races. So I'm expecting this very much to go much, much further, and certainly break its all-time high of around about $3.50 around here. How far XRP can go, nobody really knows, but certainly there is a huge potential, judging by what the charts are saying here and how quickly it can move up. It wouldn't surprise me if we go to $10, $20, $30 in the next few months. Moving on to Polkadot. I mentioned Polkadot around here, that we're creating this flag, bullish flag here, and that once we get out of that, we'll be off to the races. And so we've had this break in the last week, and we're just consolidating with this red candle here. So it's only a matter of time before Polkadot takes a big spike to the upside. The stochastic RSI is pointing to the downward side, so there may be a little bit more bearishness still in the price before we turn around towards the upside here. Two people have asked me to cover Theta. Now this one has had a massive rise since the COVID-19 situation that we got in March last year. And if we measure the amount of rise that we've had since the bottom of that COVID-19 situation, the current price is 34,000%. And I know quite a number of people of my subscribers have actually been in Theta. It's not one that I hold. In fact, I don't hold many altcoins. My focus is really on Bitcoin and Ethereum. However, I can see why people hold Theta. And if we do a little quick analysis on this, if you look at the trend lines here, we can see quite clearly which direction it's going. We may be coming up to a resistance point here. So if it can break up there, and with the Bitcoin price breaking, it may well be that we break this trend line here to go much higher. However, we could be in for a little bit of a correction as well. And we're really at the top of the stochastic RSI. So the momentum's run out with this massive move up to the upside. So while everybody was having a correction, Theta was still moving up very much higher in the last few weeks. If we want to work out a price prediction for a Theta, then all we have to do is look at exactly where these trajectory lines are going. Currently, the price is at around about the $12.94 mark. And obviously, wherever Bitcoin comes to an end in its bull market, then this price is going to follow suit. So it would be wrong to give a particular price level, but you can only see how quickly this can go up. If it can go 37,000% up in just 1 year, then there's nothing to suggest that it can't keep going higher while Bitcoin is going. And like all the altcoins, whenever Bitcoin has a correction, we can expect a similar type of correction for all the altcoins. So all the charts that I'm showing you have to have the caveat that they can all have a correction when Bitcoin gets to whatever level or whatever resistance it gets to when it has a correction. Certainly at this rate, it wouldn't surprise me if it goes to anywhere around these levels here. And that's at nearly $1,000. It's just growing at such a large level here. And finally, having a look at Marathon Digital Holdings, which is one of the Bitcoin miners. And somebody mentioned in the comments that I don't seem to cover the Riot anymore, whereas I used to before. Well, both Marathon and Riot, you'll see, are very, very similar if you look at the charts. And so covering one is like covering the other because they both compete with each other to be the top American Bitcoin miner. So they do very similar things, although they've now started to really up their game in various ways. And I don't really want to go into that. But if we do look at Marathon, it's a very similar picture to Riot. So that's why I don't really cover the Riot anymore. But certainly you can buy either of them, Marathon and Riot. And although they're not available, as I've mentioned many times before, they're not available on your normal exchanges like your Coinbase or Kraken or Binance or what have you. But you can buy them in Etoro. All you would need to do is go to the description box below any of my videos, and there's a link to the Etoro website, and there you can fill in your details and what have you, and then you'll have access to buying Marathon and Riot blockchain, amongst many other cryptocurrencies as well there. So looking at Marathon, as you can see, we're coming up to another neckline here. The first time I mentioned Marathon was at this line here when the price was around $5, $6 and what have you. And that's when I started buying up, and I've been buying along the way here. Even currently, I'm buying more and more Marathon. I have a very strong confidence in Marathon that it's going to go much, much higher. And my target was, I think, around about the $960 to $1,000 mark. And we're currently at $49 here. But as you can see, we're making this neckline based on this chart pattern here. We made a similar one here, look. And I said at this point that we're about to break and we'll go off to the races there. And now we've come to this neckline. And guess what's about to happen? If we just look at closely exactly at this point here, you'll see exactly what I mean. So we made an attempt to go above this line here at the $49 mark. We got rejected, came up, had another opportunity here, got rejected, came up here, actually pierced through and closed above that line. And then we've come up to this level here. We came up to this point, 58, 57, but came back and used this now as support. So this is now a classic bounce for the price to go much, much higher. We're now really at the base of about to have a bounce to the upside. Please remember, if Bitcoin has a correction, then all these altcoins, including the Bitcoin miners, will also have a correction. So if the price did move very, very quickly higher, if Bitcoin corrects, then we will correct as well. So always be aware of that. And if you have a look at the stochastic RSI, you can see we're just about to come to a cross, a bullish cross, which is going to propel the momentum to the upside here. On to our wisdom bites for today. And that's going to be just a few quotations. And we're going to start off with this one here, which says that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Unfortunately, most feelings of inferiority and lack of confidence come from a lifetime of other people telling us that we can't, or that we aren't good enough, or that you're not old enough to do this, or you're not old enough to do that, or leave this to the elderly people to do. So certainly I can relate to this because I was brought up with being told constantly that you can't do this, you can't do that, or you're not old enough to do this, you're not old enough to do that. And because I was the youngest in my family, nobody really took any importance to me, and I had to really fight my way through this negativity, negative energy around me all the time. Very, very toxic if you want to achieve things in life. And it really took me the best part of 30 years of my life before I actually got out of that atmosphere. But please remember that if you let people make you feel inferior or less about yourself, then you will never become the person you are meant to be. And the most important thing to take away here is that you do not allow yourself to be judged by others. And many times I've mentioned that there is this 95% to the 5% rule, that 95% of people are generally unsuccessful in life. So the majority of people out there who make you feel inferior are actually quite inferior themselves. So why would you let those types of people make you feel inferior? So please do not give your consent to making you feel inferior. Next Wisdom Bites says that do not go where the path may lead, but instead go where there is no path and leave a trail instead. What this simply means is that really we shouldn't be following the path that is already created by others. Instead, you should stand out and do something new and create your own path for others to follow. So leave a trail behind. You should do something unique and leave your mark in the world. You see, going through life and living it the way you see fit requires mountains of courage and sacrifice. And it's all about finding your passion in life and going in that direction. If you do what you love, the money will follow anyway. But in that process, you will create new trails for others to follow. You see, many times we've heard true leaders needing to make their own path, even when others ridicule or make fun of them at first. If you remember, Steve Jobs was ousted from his own company before he made his own way back and made it a success. Bill Gates was so adamant that computers were the future, he gave everything towards making the software that controlled it. Jeff Bezos sold books online, even as others thought it was a crazy idea to do so. He held confidence in his own abilities, even during the dot-com bust that we had. And what he did was created the largest marketplace just only a decade later. When you consider 95% of people are not very successful in life, what advice can they give to you if you've got a burning passion to be successful, to achieve the things that the majority don't even think of? And the final wisdom bite for today is one of my favorites, and that says that it's not the world outside that creates the conditions for your success, but rather the world inside of you that creates the conditions for your life. And really what this means is that bad things happen to everyone, but it is how we respond that will determine our ultimate success. Please remember, it rains on the poor as well as the rich. It rains on the successful as well as the unsuccessful. People who are successful also have very bad situations and circumstances, and they also have very bad upbringings, just like everybody else. They come across bad people, just like everybody else. But it is how we respond to those circumstances that makes us ultimately successful or not successful. Let me give you an example. 2 sales reps wake up one morning to go to work. They draw back the curtains and see a huge storm raging outside. One sales rep says, "Surely they can't expect me to go out to work in that weather," and he goes back to sleep. The second salesman says, "Fantastic day to make some sales." because there won't be much competition out there, especially from the salesman. So this is all to do with our thinking, and it is our choice which way we respond, either positively or negatively. And it goes back to the law of attraction. It says quite clearly that if we focus on the positive thoughts, we will bring positive actions and outcomes and circumstances and experiences into our lives. And the example I normally give here is that of our brain, because our brain is like a garden. If we don't actively plant flowers of positivity in that garden, then by default, we have weeds of negativity taking root. So you need to be actively planting positivity in your mind. And that is the operative word. That is the key word. You have to be actively taking a positive perspective on life, because if you don't, then by default, you will start thinking negatively. You will give out negative energy. And the result of that will be you will attract negative outcomes and experiences into your life. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. Thank you once again for watching. Very much appreciated. And if you found value in this video, then please do remember to like and subscribe and to turn on the notification bell. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.